So I think burnout gets a really bad rap in the sense that most people see burnout as just a weakness, as you can't handle pressure that you're under like most people can. And I want to kind of try to absolve that from what it really is. And that is, it really happens every day. And usually, a lot of people don't even know that they're going through the phases or the stages of burnout. A lot of people also think that you are going through burnout, or the people that go through burnout are mental health cases, or people in straitjackets, or people foaming at the mouth. And that usually isn't either a case. And some people are going through workplace burnout, but there's also cases of people that are stay at home moms or dads. There's also burnout at home. So I'm going to go through a very common scenario. And I just want you to see if you can actually find some common ground and see yourself in these footsteps. So, a lot of times you start a job or you get a promotion and you're trying to prove that you're worth the spot that you just got handed. So, you are taking on some extra tasks, usually because you don't feel like you have the skills that that job has just handed you. And you need to kind of brush up on either skills that you don't have at all, or maybe ones that you're a little rusty on. And you start taking some overtime, or possibly if your salary, you just put in a little extra hours. You might go in early, you might leave late. So you want to demonstrate that you're committed and show loyalty to the company. So you start just putting in that extra elbow grease. So proving you're worth it, going through the motions, and then it turns into more of hustling like it's a sport. So now you're kind of treating overwork on the regular, meaning now it's become more of an expectation. And whether that's from your colleagues or your boss or yourself, now at this point, work overload has become your new normal, but it's also become kind of unmanageable in the sense that you're feeling compelled to do it, but you're tired and you don't necessarily want to, but you keep doing it anyway. And you might feel guilty for when you don't want to and you want to take a weekend off. But because they pay for your cell phone and your salary, you feel like you need to engage on the weekends because they're texting you work related items. Or it could be you need to take a PTO day off and you need time off for your kid because they're sick and you feel guilty for actually doing that. It could be that you only feel actually valuable to your colleagues when you're being productive. You don't feel valuable to them unless you are providing proof of that. So you're going through the motions. Now there's an expectation that all of the effort that you started to put in from the beginning is now just the plain old expectation of you. So you can't actually slow down or back off. You need to keep going. And self care, well, let's act like you never heard of that because now you're skipping meals. So I was in a workplace where skipping lunch was encouraged. There were no actual breaks. So we were not designated breaks. You were expected to take a break, but encouraged to not take breaks either. So we skipped meals. We were encouraged. We had meals every once in a while were given to us by our higher ups, and we worked through those meals. So it would be a meeting where food would be on the table, but we were doing some kind of business over that meal. Sacrificing sleep. There would be times where I would be called by my boss at 10:30 at night to make sure that I was still working, and then at 7 a.m. I would be receiving the call to make sure that I was up and now working. Affecting my family because there was just no time. So relationships fell away. Um, it could be spouses. You could be leaning on them, or now it's now an expectation. Could be that when you were fostering this lifestyle of I need to go in early, I need to go in late, I need to show them that I'm loyal and dedicated. Things like picking kids up from daycare fell on other people. Or when I went to the daycare late and felt guilty for picking my kid up late, they actually were okay. So now it's okay for me to pick them up late because they don't seem to really care. So you could see that becoming a new normal. Letting your spouse pick your children up from daycare or from family members, or making all the meals now instead of you helping with that. Um, it could be depersonalization, um, feeling detached from things becomes a regular thing for you. And you need to do that in order to have full focus at work. And then you might get a little frustrated because now resentment starts to build. Because while you're at work and you're doing all of these things, there has to be a payoff. It's kind of like when you're running a marathon, there's a finish line. But when you're doing these things at work, you're running a marathon and you don't see the finish line. So you're constantly running and running and running, but where's the finish line? And eventually you get so tired, you're going to have to collapse. You're going to have to stop, right? So what happens when you don't feel seen? So I've been doing this and I'm not getting promoted. I'm doing this and I don't get accolades, at least. Like, nobody starts the meeting with saying, hey, Larkin's been staying late and she's coming in early, and let's give her all a round of applause, because there's none of that, right? So you don't address it either. You don't say, hey, I've been doing this for the past 3 months. I've been doing this for the past 6 months. I haven't had one acknowledgement, haven't had one step up. And you might start arguing with your spouse, because when we don't actually address it at work, it comes out in weird ways. So you might be bickering with your spouse about stupid stuff. Um, you might be bickering with your kids. Like, when you come home and you actually have interactions with them, it's yelling at them for not picking stuff up, not cleaning their, I don't know, their place after dinner. You might be yelling at them because they didn't get their homework done by the time you got home, and now you got to do it with them. Nothing's ever good enough. You could be bickering with coworkers. Or you can now see yourself procrastinating. So you're not getting stuff done in a step sequence. You're waiting till the last minute to get it done. You're getting it done, but you're waiting until the last minute. You could see yourself doing social media. Instead of paying attention in a meeting, you're scrolling, you're scrolling, you're scrolling. You're not engaged, and you don't want to try to push a company forward. Now you're disengaged because you don't feel noticed and seen. Then all of a sudden, prioritizing deadlines over date nights is the usual, and it's also over your friendships. And LinkedIn becomes your new personal identity. And many people blame themselves at this point, and you take on the identity of your job. So your buddies ask you to go out and you say, no, I got to work. No, I got to meet a deadline, because you almost re-engage back into work. So you have this disconnection, and then you go, you know what? I got to shake myself out of it. I'm re-engaged. And now work is my BFF. Family takes a backseat, and your identity shrinks into your job title. And you start having denial that there's problems. And you kind of get those horse blinders on, and you ignore the stress that you're under. You ignore that things are going wrong. And you might use the phrase of, I'll rest when I'm dead. And you brush off exhaustion and that you're irritable, or even health problems that have come up. And you might just say, it's fine. I'll deal with it later. Like, this is the busy season. So I'm okay for right now. And I promise that I'll go see a doctor about my heart palpitations later. I'll go see the doctor about me not being able to sleep later. And that causes more tension, usually in your household. Then you start ghosting your own life, where you're avoiding now your family and friends at social gatherings because you're tired of hearing what they have to say. And responsibilities about claiming you're too busy and you're too tired, you start retreating to the couch or to your bed like it's a fortress, and you start isolating yourself when you are home. So that's if you are home. If you are home, you're isolating because it feels safer than actually connecting with people. And the challenge here is that you don't actually realize how much your identity is entwined in. And then you don't realize that point until you start zoning out during conversations, or you start engaging in really unhealthy coping mechanisms. Like you start gaining weight. That's a big one. You start gaining a lot of weight because you're stress eating. Like you can eat an entire pizza to yourself. Or for some reason, like you're angry all the time. So you're yelling at the printer when it jams at work. You have a lot of anger when you're driving, road rage. You could be excessively drinking or started doing drugs, which is not uncommon. Why? Well, excessive drinking is to downplay your stress. So now you start going home and having a drink to calm yourself because your stress level's so high. And when that turns into, yeah, I have a beer every day when I go home. And then it turns into, yeah, I have 3 beers every night when I go home. And then it goes into, yeah, I have a bourbon when I go home. It starts changing. And then you start changing. Or it could be, yeah, I smoke weed when I go home so I can de-stress myself. Now, I'm not even going to go into any of that, but it's really about, I didn't do that before. Now I'm doing this to cope with how I feel. So if that's a change from your norm, then you know that it's a change from your norm, especially if people point it out to you. And then when you're at that point, you can say to yourself, and I knew I was at this point because I remember staring, it was getting dinner ready, and I was staring at the kitchen cabinets, and I was thinking about how I feel like every day I go through motions. Like that's all I do is I just go through motions like a robot. And I don't actually feel anything. I just work. I just do things to do them. There's nothing else to say other than, and that's just, you're on autopilot. And at that point, there was a void that I felt that nothing could really make me happy. As a woman, I found myself buying things. And ironically, I would buy something off of the internet. And when it would come, I would also find myself never opening it. I would also find myself not remembering what I bought. What did I buy? And I had no interest in actually opening it. I would just try to feel something at that point. And I thought purchasing something would make me feel something, and it didn't. No amount of binging shows would make me feel anything. I wasn't at that point, honestly, eating. Snacking wasn't doing it for me. I was just not eating at that point. So there was just an inner emptiness. Now, for me, I couldn't express how I felt because some people feel a very big depression. Some people feel suicidal. I have been depressed in my life before, so I know what that feels like. I have not been suicidal, but had suicidal ideation when I was younger. So I can know what that feels like. And I didn't have self-hatred for myself. I just felt empty. And it's very hard to explain that. I wasn't depressed. I was just nothing could make me happy. And I was very much working at a place that no longer shared my morals or ethics. And they were trying to have me do things at the workplace that I did not agree with. It was not agreeing with my morals and ethics, and it made me very uncomfortable. And I felt stuck. I did not feel valued. I felt very much used and abused. And I didn't know where to turn. But a lot of people also feel at this point self-hatred, depression, and suicidal thoughts. It's a feeling of hopelessness, like I need my job because I have a mortgage. You might have even applied to places. Like I've been applying to other places to work and not hearing back. I don't know where to turn because I don't want to be here anymore. And I'm unmotivated. I'm feeling disconnected, and you've reached full burnout. So if any of that struck a chord with you, a lot of that sounds like a lot of the people that I talk to on a regular basis. Now, I've trained thousands of people um, through different businesses. I've trained thousands of people. And when I talk to them, because if anybody has ever been a trainer, or if any of you have talked to coworkers, right? It turns into more or less a conversation about being a life coach than anything else, right? So I can be teaching about health insurance plans, and it turns into a full-blown conversation about a personal experience somebody has had. And then it turns into their personal experience where it's more or less talking about how to have a different perspective. And that's what I mean by being a life coach. And when I talk to them, very much everybody's work experience has been on that scale of I am unhappy. I don't feel heard. Where I work, their morals and ethics don't align with mine. I've been asked to do something that doesn't align with my morals and ethics. I've applied other places and I can't seem to get anywhere. And I really don't like where I currently am, but I need to work there because I'm not making enough money. I put my heart, soul, blood, and tears into this job, and I haven't gotten anything back. I can't get promoted for some reason. Maybe I don't have the skill sets that they're looking for. Maybe I'm a woman and they won't promote me because I'm a woman. Unfortunately, that still happens. But everybody I talk to on this scale, and I didn't mention the stages on purpose, has seen themselves in one of these positions. I myself have found myself all the way to stage 12 of burnout, where one night I didn't honestly know where to turn to because I was so unhappy. And I just remember I started crying and I just couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. I even called the suicidal hotline because the suicide hotline has people to talk to. And while I didn't think I was suicidal, I called them and said, listen, this is my situation. I don't know what to do about it, and I just wanted to talk to a third party. Now, that was 2 years ago for me, and I've done a lot of research since then. And I've come out of burnout, and thank God I've left that job. But what I am here to tell you is that there are a lot of lessons in going through burnout and through the stages of where you can help yourself, of where there are different things that you can do, where you can stick up for yourself, where there is an out, where you don't have to progress down that so-called linear scale of progressing down to stage 12 of burnout and finding yourself in the same position. And because I've done it, I can teach you how to do it. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys later.